My name is Michelle Cunningham, and I am the park manager here at Little PD State Park. And this is a second type of career for me. I grew up in Southern Illinois. Where I grew up, it was at the foothills of the Ozark Mountains and the Shawnee National Forest, and so I had a passion and a love for being in parks. I really enjoy being out in nature. There's something about smelling the trees. Maybe that sounds odd, but I enjoy the smell and the openness and the bigness that we have out here.
I'm Devyn Whitmire. People from South Carolina, like myself, are proud of their state and everything it has to offer. But even we don't know every nook and cranny. So we're traveling to the most charming places in the Palmetto State. Some of them you know, and some of them even we have never heard of. From Discover South Carolina, it's the Palmetto Porch. We're trekking into Little PD State Park. Well, welcome to the Palmetto Porch, Michelle.
Thanks for having me.
How long have you been working in the state park system?
For South Carolina State Parks, I have been here approximately 4 years, but I've been at Little PD for just about 3 years.
What exactly about parks attracted you and made you want to make this your career?
So I was a veterinary technician for a long time and enjoyed that job, and that kind of put me into animal pharmaceutical health. So I was a drug rep for animal health pharmaceuticals, and I ended up in Vermont and lived there for 10 years. And after about 8 years, while I loved my job, I just wanted something different. And so I left that position and opened a donut shop. We did the donut shop for about 4 years, I think. I decided at that point, I just want, I'm just done with Vermont. So I sold everything I own, bought a camper, and told myself that I had a year to travel. And I ended up traveling kind of all over the place. So as I was traveling, after a while, I got bored. And I ran into some folks and they were like, you should try camp hosting. And so that's how I ended up with Oregon State Parks and kind of how I fell in love with parks.
Yeah. So take us back again to how you ended up in Vermont with a donut shop.
Yeah. So I was in Vermont and working for this animal pharmaceutical company. And I covered all of Vermont and parts of New Hampshire. And things in my life were just changing, and I just wanted something different. And I left the company on good terms. Mm-hmm. I just decided, I just don't want to do corporate America anymore. That it wasn't my jam. And Vermont has they're known for their local everything, local maple syrup, obviously, but they're not big on big business. But I thought it was weird that they don't have a donut shop. And listen, your girl loves donuts.
What do you love about donuts?
Well, I just love sugar in general. But the yeasty, soft donuts. And now that I have owned a donut shop, I ruined on, if it's more than 20 minutes old, forget it. It's stale to me.
Yeah.
And so we did that for a year, and that was potentially the hardest season of my life of getting up at 1 a.m. and making donuts, because we had 2 fryers over here and 1 fryer over there. And so we just realized, okay, this was not sustainable to continue to do this with 2 people in my kitchen.
And then you mentioned that you traveled the country in a camper. Can you please tell us about that?
Yeah, well, I had big dreams at the time, so let me not be totally misleading. I gave myself a year because I was like, well, I sold my house and everything I own. This is how much money I have, so I could live without a job for a year. And I started traveling and kind of went down south a little bit, went through the Midwest, saw some family, saw some friends, went to Washington State, and then I ended up in Arizona because it was wintertime and my camper that I had solar power and, battery bank, so I could live off grid. And so I did. I just lived on some BLM land, which is Bureau of Land Management in Arizona, and I did that for probably a month and a half, 2 months. And that's when I got bored and met some campground hosts. And they're like, hey, you should try this. Yeah. So overall, I think I ended up being in the Pacific Northwest and working with the parks out there for a couple of years.
Can you explain camp hosting for us?
Oh, that's a good question. essentially with a campground host, and there are several different kinds of hosts, and they are a lifesaver for us in the park system. We essentially trade services, so you get your campsite for free. So typically it comes with electricity, water, and septic, and so you're camping like you normally would, and then you'd help out the campground or whatever it is that you're hosting with. So our campground hosts here, this is the second time that they have hosted with us, and they clean our bathrooms, they check the fire pits, they clean the sites off before guests arrive, and they put the little hang tag on the post. And they're also our eyes and ears of the park. So they're there to greet guests. So at this particular park, there's only 3 full-time people, and we can't be everywhere all the time. Mm-hmm. So it really helps to have them. The camp hosting that I did in Oregon, I was a cabin host, and they had some camper cabins out there. So I would clean the cabins after folks would leave and get that ready and help sell some firewood and ice and whatnot.
Sounds like a really special symbiotic relationship.
Yeah.
What did you learn from your experience as a camp host, do you think?
I learned a lot, because when you visit a park, you kind of get the shiny, like, ooh, this is nice. You just come visit, you get to see the nice things. But as a campground host or an employee, you get to see the background stuff. So I get paid to walk trails, but walking a trail in the middle of August when it's 100 degrees outside is a little bit different than walking a trail on a day that it's 60 degrees outside and there are no bugs. But I also got to see the camaraderie of staff and the relationship that they would have to the volunteers. And so there's just a lot of that stuff that it was a good experience to learn.
Tell us the moment that you realized that you wanted this to be along your career path, that you wanted to be in the role that you are now.
For me, it was while I was camp hosting. It's something that I had kind of thought off and on. There was a short period of time where I knew somebody that their son was becoming a forestry ranger, and I thought, that would be really cool to do. But that particular state that I was living in at the time, they required a 4-year forestry degree, and I didn't want to go back to school to get a whole different degree. So I just kind of thought, that's not something that I could ever do. And, being a woman, it was in law enforcement, that was, at that time, it wasn't really encouraged. So I just thought, okay, this is a door that will never open. So when I was volunteering with Oregon State Parks, the manager there had worked in California for a long time as law enforcement, and Oregon State Parks don't have a law enforcement program. And so we just started talking. He's like, Michelle, there are different ways that you can do this, and there are different options. And so I actually almost took a job with them seasonally. Some things came up with my family that I ended up leaving before I took that job. But I think just being there and seeing, okay, I can see the good, the bad, and the ugly, and the really fantastic. And this is possible now. This isn't something that is no longer a closed door. This is actually something that I can do.
How did you end up here, where we are now, in South Carolina? From Oregon
right
to South Carolina.
Right. So I got a job working at a local park as just a part-time employee, and thought, okay, I've volunteered, but sometimes volunteering is a little different than when you're actually a paid employee. So I really wanted something more permanent. And I was still living in my camper, which was an 18-foot camper. So after 2 years of living in 144 square feet with a dog and a cat, I was ready to be done. I loved that stage of my life, but I was like, okay, I need a little more room. So I decided to just start putting out resumes and applying all over the country. And so there are a few places that I almost came up with, but South Carolina was the fastest, and Hickory Knob State Park. And I enjoyed my time at Hickory Knob. I then went to Barnwell State Park, and I was there for about 4 months working as a ranger 2 there, and then I got the manager position here at Little PD.
So we're in Little PD State Park. What makes this park special compared to others in South Carolina?
Well, I have to say all state parks in South Carolina are special. However, Little PD, it's quiet. I mean, if we stop talking for a second, you're not going to hear much. And the evenings, the Chuck Wills willow that comes out, which I grew up with whippoorwills. So the first time I heard one, I thought, what is this? It's not a whippoorwill. And so it took me a little bit to figure that out. We have some resident herons that are beautiful, majestic birds. If you've never heard a heron, it sounds like a grumpy old man getting up in the morning. It's like a rah. So if you startle one, it will be startling to you as well. We have some egrets. There's an osprey that sometimes when I'm checking on the lake and looking at the levels, I just get to stand there and watch. You know, they're diving down and getting the fish and coming back up. And it's even when we're busy, we're jam-packed. And I say jam-packed, but it's still not that busy and it's still quiet. You know, we have a beautiful 54-acre lake. We have kayaks that you can rent. I just secured a grant, so we're going to bring pedal boats back. They used to have them back several years ago, and people have asked for them, so we're going to get an ADA accessible boat that if you can't use your legs, you can use your hands, and then a regular pedal boat, and then we have bicycles to rent. So there's trails. There's a lot of things to do here. And camping, obviously, that's a big one. For me, as a park manager, this is why I do what I do. I had another experience where there was some folks that had visited. They were doing the Ultimate Outsider. It was a lady and her grandkids. And she had one grandchild that was like 7 or 8 that was like, oh my gosh, this is the greatest thing. And then there was a 15, 16-year-old who was waiting in the car because, right, I can't.
Too good for nature.
And I've been that person, so I get it. But I just happened upon them taking a picture at the selfie spot and thought, hey, you guys want me to take your picture? We chatted, and then, you know, we probably talked for 15 minutes. Parted ways. I went back to the office. They went to their car, and then they came back with a 16-year-old who then had questions and then wanted to talk to, there's a female ranger. What? This is something that I could do. And to watch her light up. I mean, the little girl it was super exciting to watch them, but they were already excited. But to see that moment where the 16-year-old decided, this is actually kind of cool.
Yeah.
I want to do this. And I was walking back to my truck, and I was far enough away that I don't think that they could hear me. I'm going to get emotional.
That's okay.
But they turned, and the little girl and the 16-year-old said, that's what I want to be when I grow up. That's why I do this job. Because there are days that it's hard.
Do you have any final thoughts, anything that you want to leave us with from our time together, whether it's about state parks or about other people in their career journeys, anything you might want to kind of leave us with?
Yeah, I think the two most important things to me when people ask, I would love to be a park ranger, or what do you do as a park ranger? One, yes, you can do this job. And it doesn't matter what background that you came from or what kind of town or city or whatnot. Like, if you enjoy being outside, or even if you've never really been outside, you can still come and experience it, learn to be a park ranger.
To learn more about this and all the towns we're featuring on the show, visit scpalmettoporch.com. The Palmetto Porch is produced by Discover South Carolina in partnership with Pod People. Special thanks to our production team at Pod People, Lauren Luco, Ben Sauls, Lauren Sauls, Grace Pina, and Kim Wong.